Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Chris Brooks, for another LSB Film podcast. I hope everyone's well today. So today's guest is a little bit special. Today we've got Zev. Now, Zev has dedicated the last 25 years educating himself and others on our rights, and he's done so from the shadows because he prefers to work from the shadows, which is fair enough, to be fair. He has been a guest speaker on multiple podcasts discussing matters including opting out lawfully, the Telstra 5G rollout in Australia, and obviously the CV-19 lockdowns. He is a lawful and legal enthusiast, a social activist, and a concerned member of the community. And he is not afraid to stand up for our rights. He is not a lawyer, but he is your friendly and very wise counsel and advocate around all matters in this domain. He is exceptionally well versed and researched on most legal and lawful matters in Australia, and he has a strong comprehension between what is legal and what is lawful. And we're also going to touch on the matter of the video which has been circling around with Govinda Tidball, and we're going to just put a few facts to rest. So without further ado, welcome to the channel and the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having us on and for making the arrangements with the time zone differences between the geographical locations, let's say.
No, this is perfect for me. So yeah, lovely to have you here. So 25 years in the game. What
A little bit longer, actually, closer to 30 days, yeah.
Blimey. So what
A bit of background for your
Yeah.
listeners here, Chris, and for yourself as well, mate. I was at the age of 17 warning friends and people about the New World Order and the HARP Project and all these other nefarious activities that are largely now common knowledge. And of course, 30 odd years ago, I was deemed to be batshit crazy or a conspiracy theorist because no one really got it back then. It wasn't affecting anybody. It hadn't happened yet. And I'm like, guys, look, the writing's on the wall. It's there. Here's the evidence. No one cared. Even some of my old mates I went to school with when COVID hit were like, dude, we owe you an apology. We've all thought you were crazy for years, but now we see it. Now we get it. So it's taken a long time for people to wake up to things are not as we're told. Basically, anything that we've learnt through the schools, government, or media is generally the opposite of what we're told. So if we're told it's black, I'm willing to bet in my left arm that it's probably white. And we generally work backwards from that premise. The question is finding out where is the evidence and the facts to support the claim that is in fact backwards and that we've all been lied to and just ripped off blindly, basically, for most of our lives. So after a long time of doing that, at the age of, say, 19 or 20, I was out bush in remote areas, challenging logging and mining operations, living completely off grid, hiding in the bush from security and police and mining companies. And we'd pop out and shut down works while waiting for court to put injunctions, etc. through. So I started learning at a very early age at like 19 or 20, and I'm almost 50 now. So it's been a long time. When you're chaining yourself to trees and bulldozers and sitting up atop of, 50 and 60-foot tripods or 50 to 80 feet in the air up tree sits, you generally can't run away from the police when they come to arrest you. So I found myself getting arrested a lot for my environmental activism and supporting our Indigenous people of the land here with their sacred lands and areas they didn't want destroyed. And I got arrested a lot. And I found myself in court a lot, funnily enough, through that. And it didn't take me long to work out that things are not as they appear or seem in here. There was a lot that I was questioning and didn't quite know how back then. So I started learning. I started experimenting. I found myself deliberately getting arrested at some of these blockades and actions that we were doing just so I could test out what I was learning in court and see if it worked. Now, some of it worked really well, and I still use some of that today. Some of it went spectacularly pear-shaped for me. And I learned the hard way.
I have to say, it takes some balls the size of bollards to do that. So fair play to you.
School of hard knocks for me, Chris, and that's how I learned. And now through learning that, I try and help others learn without going through the school of hard knocks, without being beaten up and arrested by police consistently, without having to go to court all the time. how to maintain our rights and our freedoms, and how to hold these establishments and governments, regardless of which part of the world you're in, how to hold them to account for their fraud and deception, and to maintain that our rights are not being infringed upon. And it's just a large part of what I do nowadays is to help people learn that. And, largely I like to operate with a lot of the international laws and UCC filings, etc., and run projects and activities under private members associations, which all incorporate the international laws. And the reason I do that is because it doesn't matter which country we're in. These are an international agreement. We've got this benchmark, if you like, that's set as an international agreement. And one country cannot change or amend those agreements without the consent of all the other countries agreeing to the changes. And none of the countries agree on much, is no secret, Chris. So these
it's funny. The only thing that they have ever agreed on, and they've kept to it, is the staying away out of the North Pole.
The South Pole, the Antarctica Treaty.
Yeah, sorry, the South Pole. That's the treaty. That's the only treaty that all the countries around the globe have ever stuck to.
Yeah, and look, we also have some international covenants and treaties and principles, particularly for countries that are UN members, that pertain to our inalienable rights, and or our human rights. These are some of the rules that I apply. But if we're applying these, we need to check, have they been ratified in the country you're intending to use them in? Were they adopted by House Joint Resolution? Has it been codified or included into the laws of that particular nation? Now, for the Commonwealth countries like myself and where I am, yes, a lot of this is very well usable and applicable because the Commonwealth law we're based on here as well. We've never really gotten out from under the shadow of the UK or England for how things work here in Australia. And it's a very hot topic in Australia as to whether or not we should be part of that or not. But we'll save that for another day. So what's happened, Chris, there's a lot of people who are out there online and making videos and some pretty wild and out there claims that there's no proof of. And this is where I think the reason you've reached out to me is over the online war, which I never intended to happen, over a video I posted about a week ago in relation to some alleged UCC filings. And this is, as you mentioned at the start of the call here, Govinda Tidball and Carl Washington were guests on a podcast, similar to what I'm doing with you today, where they spoke about the lawful redemption and reclamation of, certain legal entitlements, courtesy of a perfected security interest done via a UCC or Uniform Commercial Code filing. Now, just to clear the record straight, I know you've got quite a few followers that watch your podcast, so I do want to attempt to set the record straight here that the video I made is not intended or done with any intention of an attack or to discredit or debunk anything that Cal or Govinda are actually doing. And Govinda and Cal, if you guys are watching this, I'd like this to be some sort of a public apology for the way in which that information was conveyed. And yes, I agree, I was a little bit scathing in that video and could have been more polite and done it better, but it's done now. And what I'm trying to do is create some remedy for the fact that the UCC filing relied upon for all these. And don't get me wrong, what Govinda's tried to do here, Chris, is phenomenal. It's great stuff that he's tried to do. And hats off to him for having a dig to do that, one, for his family, and two, to help others. I don't want to take away from the great work he's doing in any way, shape, or form. But to have these claims based upon a UCC filing, where is the UCC filing? Now, through my extensive experience with the UCC systems and filings, and I'm walking proof that it can be used effectively in most countries. With my own UCC filings, I've registered my vehicle under it and everything. I have my own homemade plates on the car, not government or state issued, have done nearly 3 years, and I get left alone. If we're going to base these claims upon a UCC filing, we need to see the filing, and the filing must be done correctly with the appropriate documents that go with. Now, what he has done, which is really good, is his affidavit, which is unrebutted. That's fantastic, and well done to that one on Govinda. But attached to that affidavit is no actual UCC1 filing or record of, and the UCC3 that has been claimed to do this lawful redemption. A UCC3 is a amendment to a UCC1. As I stated in my previous video, scathing or otherwise, and again, Govinda, I apologise for the way that came across. we need to have the UCC1 to amend. We cannot have a UCC3 without a UCC1 because the 3 is an amendment to something, but where's this primary foundational building block that supports all these amazing things that he's trying to do? That one singular foundational building block appears to be missing. And I think it's just through just confusion or just missing some of the finer points. There's that one piece of the puzzle that he just hasn't included in that puzzle that he's put together. And that is the UCC filing or proof of. And the UCC3 or the amendum addendum looks a bit different to when I've done them with many years' experience on the UCC system. And again, I spent a good hour or more on the UCC system attempting to locate this UCC1 filing, and I could find no search results that matched anything that I put in to locate the UCC1. Now, just to clarify too, Chris, for your listeners, the UCC1 is not the be-all and stand-all. When we do these here, or as I've done for many in other parts of the world outside of Australia, the UCC is done with an affidavit, a copyright notice to copyright the name and your physical flesh and blood body so it can't be interfered with.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a security agreement as well. And the security agreement is what perfects the security interest. The equity,
sorry, I was just going to say, is a copy mark
copyright.
It's a
trademark of a copyright.
Is that the same as a trademark?
Very similar. The copyrights and trademarks are a bit different, but we cover both with that particular document. And it creates a contractual user agreement for anyone using that copyrighted name in the absence of consent or permission to do so. And along with that is, as I was saying, our security agreement, which perfects the security interest, if you like, the equity in our own assets, which we've used our life force living energy as the living to acquire. And then we have a private agreement between you and your man of straw. There's a bit of a trick on how we go about doing that. We also have a hold harmless indemnity agreement, the UCC filing, the receipt to show who the secured party and the secured party creditor was that did the filing and proof that we've paid for it. Therefore, it's all official and we can show, one, the actual UCC1 filing number and a receipt to show that it was done correctly. And there's a couple of other documents we do with that. And then, of course, it all has to be notarized and apostilled and authenticated by various, lodged with the right departments for it all to be in effect and actually offer that practical lawful remedy. So it's quite an involved process that does take a fair bit of time and a bit to get your head around. Now,
it sounds intensive.
It is intensive, but it's a great layer of legal security for people seeking a bit more freedom and to separate themselves from this fictitious all caps name or person or creature of statute, which we're not, Chris. You and I are creatures of God or nature, depending on your religious or spiritual beliefs.
I believe in a creator. I have quite a, I don't know if you're familiar with the sacred secretion, but that resonates with me, which is basically about Christos oil, so the Christ within. So it's a bit Buddha-y, I suppose, but I don't necessarily follow any religion, but I do believe in something bigger than us.
There's more out there than we can see and feel, and and I think it's very ignorant of anyone to go, no, there's only the physical realm, mate. There's nothing else that exists. I think that's an
rubbish. Well, I think we've kind of disproved that anyway with things and quantum physics, and we know that there's more to. What is it? Only something like 90% or 97% of the light visible we don't even see.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot more there than we're aware of. Absolutely.
So can you, just for the listeners, because not everyone who watches follows this, what is the basics of what a UCC is? It's a tool, but what is, just, can you give me like the real basic definition of what it is?
I'll give you a shortened version of it if you like, Chris, because I could go on UCC stuff for hours and time permitting, we'll lose that. So the UCC is an abbreviation for Uniform Commercial Codes, and these are widely accepted as the universal or uniform codes of commerce, the rules of engaging in commerce, if you like, worldwide.
Right. Okay.
So this is basically a short version of it. They're called Uniform Commercial Codes. There is a long list of them. I can email you a list of those codes if your listeners want to have a look through. There's many, many pages. There are lots of these codes. And these are the codes that regulate or govern commerce on an international level. And when we do a correct and proper UCC filing, they can be done for a whole host of different purposes and reasons and ways, pending on the desired outcome or goal of that UCC filing.
Mhm.
As a general rule, when we do them for people either here or overseas, it's to correct and correct and change their status and standing to separate themselves from the straw man or the all caps name or the person, which is a creature of statute, not a creature of God or nature.
Mhm.
And it lets the establishment know that we're aware of the trickery and the fraud. We are not this entity, we're this entity. And it's done with, again, like Govinder's done with an unrebutted affidavit and stuff. Again, he's done some great work with some of that, Chris. And I do not want to, again, the intention was never to discredit him or Cal, was just to ask questions about where is the filing that this is all based upon. Because when done correctly, there's quite a lot of paperwork to do. And then it's got to be filed and recorded with the UCC. Even if it's done as a non-UCC filing, we still have the record there so that anyone can look up the record and see what's actually occurred. And that's a big part of it. So these uniform codes or these UCC uniform commercial codes literally govern the codes and rules of commerce worldwide. They're widely accepted by most countries around the world. If anyone goes on the UCC site to have a look at that, it'll ask you for the country you're filing from. And there's a very, very long and extensive list of just about every country you could think of in alphabetical order, from Afghanistan through to Zimbabwe. So most countries do use, recognise, and utilise the UCC codes as the international standard that governs the rules of commerce. So when we do our filings on there, they operate as kind of like a lien or a caveat, if you like. We'll let them know that you hold the pre-existing claim over whoever and whatever we list the debtor as our secured party, because we hold the security and the credit. And the trick has been since 1666 that we're the debtor and the trustee when in fact we are the creditor and the beneficiary. And this is what these filings do, is to change and correct our status and standing and let them know we're aware of your fraud. We're not having it. And this is my true and correct standing. Now, just for some of your listeners, Chris, a bit of history on that one.
Yeah, please.
This began in the year of 1666 with the creation of the CQV or Cestui or SESQV Act. And under this act, the Crown at the time over in the UK there declared that everybody was now dead and lost at sea. But not to worry, the government's always had our best interest at heart, as we all know, Chris. And what they've said was, it's all right, guys, no need to fret on that one. I struggle to say that with a straight face every time, mate. But the government has then said, it's okay, what we're going to do, since you're all dead and lost at sea because we said so, we're going to hold everybody's names, titles, and properties in trust for your benefit as the beneficiary until such time as you return from being lost at sea and correct your status as the living. Then you can make a claim for damages against the trusts. And this is what we have to do, is we have to let them know I'm not lost at sea. I'm not deceased. I'm alive and well, and here I am on land, correcting my status and standing so that we can use some of these constructive and testamentary trusts. For one, stopping people from making fraudulent claims against we the living when the claims are against the man of straw, and to let them know that he's the debtor, not me. He's the trustee, and I'm the beneficiary. And that's what these filings do when done correctly, is to correct that status and standing. And it's a way of formally notifying the establishment or the government that this is now the case.
You've got to hand it to them. They were so crafty, weren't they?
Look,
they've deceived everyone.
The level of sneakiness and cunningness, as nefarious and deviant as it is, you have to admire how clever what they've done is. But to be able to sell such a lie for so many hundreds of years to so many people around the world is staggering. And look, thanks to COVID, Chris, more and more people have woken up to these lies and fraud and treachery. And
I was going to say, COVID was a bit of a blessing in disguise, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and many people around the world are now trying to maintain their freedoms and reassert their rights. And look, we don't have to fight for our rights, guys. You never lost them.
No, that's it.
We just have to reassert that we now know what they are and they're not to be infringed upon.
No, 100%. So you have touched upon it. So with regards to the PMAs and whatnot, why should, in your opinion, an individual consider forming a PMA?
Well, the PMAs are a bit different to the UCCs. They're two completely separate animals.
Okay.
Yep. And look, the PMA is a private members association. And my short description of them, Chris, is look, we have mobs like the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the Club of Rome, our Freemasons, all these, I call them little boys clubs. Yeah, and you and I aren't invited to any of these clubs, Chris. So we don't
No,
get any of the
exactly.
benefits and
But but
privileges.
can but can PMAs and UCC coincide? Can they work together?
Yeah and no. So
Right.
look, the reason of the PMA, Chris, was to do our own little boys club and not invite them.
Right. Okay.
And if we're all equal before the law, why aren't we creating our own little boys club, not inviting these mongrels and creating our own benefits and privileges under exactly the same? Because we are all equal before the law. Otherwise, the law doesn't work. So I've used that
Mm.
for our benefit rather than detriment with the PMA to do so. Now, let me give you a good example here. The PMA is created outside of statutes and legislative framework or obligations or requirements. Much like we, the living, were not created by the statutes or legal fiction, therefore it doesn't have that power over us in the absence of consent. With the PMA, though, we're going to create our own rules, our own system of governance under our international rights to self-governance and self-determination, privacy, and autonomy, recognised in the international arena that we have these rights. We just need to be able to enforce them. And the PMA is a great way of doing that. But the PMA doesn't let you just go and do whatever you like. You can't, I'm a member of Zev's or Chris's PMA, so I can go and rob banks and go hurting people. No, no. We've got to operate with honour and integrity and not have any intent or intention
Standing.
cause harm, loss, damage, or injury. And we're only protected by the PMA when we're actively engaging in projects or activities of that particular PMA. Now, I'm not sure how it is with the football you have over there. We call football a bit different for us. Your footy is soccer for us, and we have our AFL and rugby codes here. Now, I'm not sure if you get the same in your football over there in the UK, mate, but we often get a lot of our football players here. They're quite renowned for going out in the weekend, getting on the piss and starting drunken brawls and doing all sorts of stupid things. When they do that, they are put before the courts and the magistrates and judges, just like everybody else. If you punch someone out, you're up for assault. It's very simple. But if these guys in Australia, as any of our footy players, they punch on nearly every week on the field. Nothing happens to them. They don't go to court for that. They get a little slap on the wrist and told, mate, now you can't play football for 2 weeks because you punched out Chris. Yeah. Now, why is that so? Because they're actively engaging in projects or activities of that private association, society, sporting club membership agreement that says when our members are participating in one of our projects or activities, we have our own rules, our own laws that apply that are separate and outside of the statutes and or regulatory obligations, if you like. And because we create these PMAs free of that, they work in pretty much any part of the world with the exception of Palestine or the Vatican City. So if you're not interested in running a PMA in Palestine or the Vatican City, these are a great thing, especially in Commonwealth nations like yourself, us, Canada, New Zealand, etc. Fantastic way to do things. What we're doing is creating our own system of government and governance, our rights to self-determination and self-governance. We're letting the government know that we don't need to be governed. We don't need or want your overreach that we haven't consented to. And we're going to operate privately over here, away from all of that.
Mm. No,
And we have every
that makes
right to do
sense.
so.
Mm. So with PMAs, for someone interested in a PMA, what steps should they take then to determine if someone is suitable or if it's suitable, sorry, for their specific needs or situations?
Really depends. Usually we use PMAs for projects or hobbies. We've had guys come to us that want to do a surf school, but they don't want to comply with all the government regulations for being licensed or certified or permitted to teach or run that. So we do it privately with our private members instead. Same for our, a lot of people, excuse me,
So,
might run a yoga school or a breathwork thing, for example, or some form of modality of healing that Western medicine's not a fan of because there's no money in it for big
mm,
pharma. In which case you need all these licenses and certificates and permits to, you don't in the private because we're not engaging with the public. We can only engage with those who have become a member of our private members association, in which case then it's all done privately. It's done by private agreements, private contracts, where we're not required to be permitted by the state or the government to do all these things because we have a private agreement in place that is set up outside of those statutes or legislative requirements or obligations. Really depends on what it is you're wanting to do. We do put a big focus on our PMAs of some sort of altruistic thing. Yeah? There must be a benefit for your members, even if the members pay for those benefits or services. But they have to become a member first. Otherwise, you're doing business with the public. And
mm,
that's where PMAs come undone when this public private line gets mixed. I treat it like two highways, Chris. We've got a public highway and a private highway. They do not meet, they do not intersect.
That's a good analogy.
When we're in that private highway, there's no government benefits or privileges. No one's coming to help you or bail you out. It's in the private, all responsibility and accountability is on you and you alone. And that's the price we pay for operating privately. We have like a Medicare thing, for an example, here in Australia, where the government will give you a rebate when you go to the doctors. Most countries have some sort of a similar thing, but that's a public system. Yep. So when we go to the doctor, you've got to decide, are we going to wear my public hat or the private hat when we go in? Now, if I want to operate in the public, I might use my Medicare card and get the bugger all rebate that they offer of $12 or whatever stupid amount that it is. I might decide, no, I'm going to do this privately today and I'll just pay the doctor's fee. And it's your choice, your right to choose as to which field we want to operate in at any given time. Again, we can't mix the public and private. So for one matter, I might do it in the public. The next day, I might do it in the private. It's my right to choose.
Absolutely.
And it comes down to a right, because it's not a right, Chris, unless we get a choice as to when and how we exercise that right. That's what makes it a right.
No, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it is. So you said that you haven't been, or you're driving, but not state driving, because driving, even the word driving is the state word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Traveling, sorry. Have you not been stopped at all then? Do you have any kind of interactions with the police?
No.
And how does that go?
Very quickly, before I even managed to get my phone out to record the interaction, they've told me bugger off and have a nice day.
Really?
Yeah, and all I've said to them is, like, I got pulled over for what they call an RBT here, a random breath test, to make sure I'm not driving around pissed as a fart. And we can go into the legalities about how that works here in Australia, of whether or not you actually have to stop or comply, but we'll save that for another day. I've just gone, yeah, whatever. Pick your battles, path of least resistance style thing. I'll pull over and said, yeah, what's up, fellas? Oh, it's just a random breath test, mate. Yep, not a problem. And can we ask you what's to go with your plates? I said, oh, it's registered under international law privately. I've got on my paperwork here. It's been signed off on by our federal government departments. And I've got on my insurance paperwork and everything here. Do you want to check? Do you want to have a look just to verify? Mate, if you've got all your paperwork in order, you're good to go. We just haven't seen plates like that before and wanted to ask. Off you go. And I'm like, I haven't even got my phone out yet to record.
They seem like rather decent police people.
I haven't had one of the dickhead coppers, as we call them here, that's just been, no, you're unregistered and unlicensed and uninsured. I'm not. I've got a license. I've got full insurance with one of Australia's largest insurers. And funnily enough, Chris, in Australia, they're not allowed to insure unregistered vehicles, which is part of my argument with the police. Well, how is it I have insurance when you're claiming I'm unregistered and the insurers aren't allowed to insure an unregistered vehicle, yet I have insurance? So just because I'm not registered in the way and format that you would like is not to say that I am not registered somewhere. Yes, it's not to the state or the government here. So it's not to say I'm not registered.
What is the equivalent to your, because here we've got the DVLA, which is the driving license something authority, vehicle licensing authority. What is it in Australia?
Well, the licensing and registration here are two separate departments.
Right, okay.
So the licensing is one thing, and then the registration is with a separate body. And I've notified the mob that I used to have state registration with that I'm not doing that anymore. These are my new registration plates so that you know who's driving or who's travelling, I should say, whose vehicle or vessel in dry dock, as I refer to it, is. And I've notified them of that with registered mail, so there can be no question of, well, you didn't tell us you were changing over your rego. Yeah, I did. And I've got all the proof of registration of mail documents and receipts, etc., to show that I did in fact notify the Department of Transport and Main Roads of the change of rego. And I also informed them that I'm no longer a customer.
That's the biggie, isn't it?
So you've got to have proof of claim for every step of the process, regardless of what we're doing when we're challenging the establishment. And this comes down to our very old and ancient maxim of law, which says that the onus of burden of proof lies on the one making the claim. And something I go through with a lot of our members is, guys, stop making claims and start asking questions. When we ask, That too, but when we ask the question, Chris, it invites a response. And if you're dealing with dickhead police, they generally respond with some sort of wild and absurd claim. You've now put the burden of proof on them to make proof of the claim in response to your question. So, guys, stop making claims, start asking questions. And if you're not getting the right answer, it's probably because you didn't ask the right question. So, if we want better answers, we've got to learn to ask better questions.
So I have to say, you have to have a certain amount of coherency in order to do this because I can see so many people failing by, I don't know, using the wrong word, which automatically puts you back into their system. And so it is quite a minefield, isn't it? So I have so much respect for you and other people that can do this. And it's great speaking with somebody that's actually living proof of what they talk about. My channel started to get quite popular when I started doing the affidavits through somebody else that was helping me. Unfortunately, that fell on its face. But because I was practicing what I was preaching, people respected that. And so
You got
I
to
have
be
so much
cool.
respect for people that do this because it's not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not. It can be very challenging at times, and you just got to keep moving forward. And look, it's not for everyone, Chris. That's the other thing. Everyone goes, I want to do it, but some people this just isn't right for. It just doesn't work. They can't get their head around it. Don't
Mm.
do it. Wait until you've learned it better. I use the analogy of look, if you're on your white belt, don't enter a black belt tournament.
Yeah.
If you've just watched a couple of YouTube videos and gone, I'm going to go to court and beat whatever, mate, you're on your white belt. You're dealing with black belts when you walk into that courtroom. It's not going to go well. So I say everybody, don't punch above your weight. Play to your strengths. And everyone's at a different place on their learning and comprehension of what our laws, the common law, our rights and international laws and everything are. It's not a competition. We all get where we need to be at the time that we need to be there in accordance with what we're ready for, what we can learn, and where our heads are at. And it's a very individual thing.
Yeah,
There's no
definitely.
benchmark that you all have to be at this level to do this. It's each to their own.
And I guess, like you say, we're all on our own individual journeys. So some people were meant to wake up, some people weren't meant to wake up. It's just the way it is, isn't it?
They get
Unfortunately.
there when they're ready. I used to when I was younger, I'd be screaming it from the rafters at people. Why can't you idiots see this? And I'm like, look, enough people know who I am and what I do after 25, nearly 30 years. When is it ready? Come talk to me. I'm over preaching to the asleep and the sheep. It's just there's no point. So when you're ready for the information, come have a chat with me. Until then, go and do some learning yourself.
No, that's it. No, 100%. I'll tell you what I wanted to ask you. How can you ensure that the enforcement of your rights under a UCC filing, especially when facing like the seizure of a property?
Well, look, part of the UCC filings, when done properly, of course, is it works as a lien. So I've got that over my car, for example, or as I call it, my vessel in dry dock, because our roads are in fact shipping lanes and we're on land. So, so we'll have that chat later on, maybe, Chris, about how and why that works. What it is a lien. So if I get, say, the sheriff turn up here, for example, and says, Zev, you've been a naughty boy, mate. You haven't paid your fines. We're here to take your car in lieu of the amounts claimed owing or outstanding. Yep, not a problem, fellas. Not even going to argue with you about that. You're welcome to take the car, but there is the small issue of my lien, which I have over that asset for 1.1 billion US dollars. Now, until my lien has been satisfied, as my claim existed prior to yours, first in time, first in law, you can't take the vehicle. Now, once that 1.1 billion has been cleared in my account, you guys are more than welcome to take the car. But my claim existed prior to yours, therefore, my claim, my lien,
Supersedes.
of reform must be sorted first. It's a shutout. It's a block off. I'm never going to get the money, Chris. It was never about the money.
No, it's just yeah,
1.1
holding it in
billion
control.
US dollars. Yeah, that's a savage deterrent.
No, that's yeah. Wow.
So that's why we do it. Yeah, and it's the reason I've gone 1 billion too is my life force living energy. What price can I put on that? That's what allows me to give credit, and I'm assuming that my life force living energy can
That's right. We're
give
creditors, aren't
million
we?
dollars of credit. That's why I'm the creditor, exactly, because it's my life force living energy. And I'm the
Mhm.
only one with equity over that.
It must have taken. I know you've said you're doing this like 30 years, but
Close to, yeah.
so much information to take in.
again, each to their own as to where we're at in our journey of learning here with all this, Chris. And it's a lot to get your head around. The biggest hurdle that people struggle to get over is admitting to themselves that we've believed the lie and we were
Yes.
part of that. And until you can acknowledge that within yourself and in here, none of this is going to work for you. You've got to acknowledge, yeah, all right, I was a bit silly. I believed the lie. I was part of it. I participated, but now I'm going to change that. And you've got to get over that within yourself.
Absolutely. Wasn't it Mark Twain that said it's easier to fool somebody than convince them that they've been fooled?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
something like that.
Yeah.
So let people know where they can find you then.
Well, look, yeah, anyone who wants a bit more info, you can drop us an email at admin@warriottlaw.com. Again, our website, warriottlaw.org, is set up for our private members. So to get through there, you'll need to sign up for become a member. Membership's free, by the way. There are some upgrades for membership once you remember. But again, under the auspice of the PMA, I can't interact or engage with anybody or exchange any goods or services of value for an equal or equitable exchange until you're a member. Otherwise, I'm engaging with the public from a private organisation, which undoes the privacy of the private organisation
No.
in my private members association.
No, that's brilliant. Well, I will put the email, your website, and your Telegram link in the video description so people can go and check you out. I strongly advise anyone to go and check out the website because any knowledge that you can use to empower yourself and to better your life for you and your family, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's not easy. Caveat, it's not easy,
It's
but it's
not an
worth
easy.
it.
It's not an easy. And look, one of my favourite quotes and sayings, Chris, is the roughest roads often lead to the best destinations.
That's it. No, 100%. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I would love to have you back at a later date and we can talk about anything that you want to talk about. I know that this was predominantly about getting that message out. Thank you so much for your time today.
Look, thank you for having us on, Chris. And look, if you want to do this again, we'll just have to arrange for the geographical time zone differences. Happy to have another chat with you, mate.
Brilliant. Nice one. Well, thank you very much for joining me. And I hope everyone watching this has enjoyed it and learned from it. Please check out the website. Got to be done. Until next time, look after yourselves. Have a great day. And I will speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.